Welcome, pre-calculus students. Today we're going to be looking at inverse functions, especially those dealing with trigonometry. The first thing I want to take a look at, though, is kind of review some things that we've gone over in the first semester about just inverses in general. So what an inverse function did was it kind of flip-flopped the domain and the range that would typically happen for a function. So, for example, if we had some function f of x, the function would take something out of the domain, do something to it, and kick it back into the range. What the inverse function did was took something out of the range, or the y values, it run it through this function, this inverse function, f inverse of x, and that would kick it back into the domain. Trig functions are going to work the same way, but let's take a look at the domain and the range. When we have a trig function, what we're typically putting in is some angle. You know, we're asking for the sine of 30 degrees, the cosine of 60 degrees, the tangent of pi over 4. So it's going to take an angle and it's going to kick out some ratio. You know, the cosine of 30 degrees becomes the square root of 3 over 2. That gives us a ratio of opposite over hypotenuse. What a trig inverse function, a trig inverse, is it's going to take some ratio and it's going to tell you what angle gets associated with that. The x becomes the y's. In this case, what our input becomes is the ratios, and it's kicking out angles. The brief thing we want to mention about functions is one-to-one functions. One-to-one functions are these crazy things that we get graphing. We can visually check for by graphing. In a one-to-one function, there's only one y value for every x, and they pass what we call the horizontal line test. There's only one value for every x, there's only one x value for every y. Something is not a one-to-one function if it fails the horizontal line test. So when we draw it, because this horizontal line intersects this graph twice, it's failed, it's not a one-to-one function. If something's not a one-to-one function, that means its inverse is not a function, even if the graph of this is. So in this fictitious function, green here, both the inverse and itself would pass the one-to-one test, which means its inverse is a function. This blue line's 1. Inverse would not be a function because it fails the one-to-one test.